Hello friends, in this video I will talk about how to create a resume that stands out, a resume that gets shortlisted, a resume that lands you the job that you're looking for. Now no pressure, but any resume has around 5 to 10 seconds to impress the reader of the resume, either the recruiter or the hiring manager, for it to get shortlisted. And in those first 5 to 10 seconds, if your resume doesn't stand out and is not able to impress the recruiter, then it just lands into the pile of many other resumes that are there which didn't get shortlisted and didn't get to the next process or next stage in the hiring process. Because 5 to 10 seconds is exactly the time that it takes for the recruiter or the reader of the resume to skim through the resume. And by the way, this number I'm not throwing from thin air, rather this has been researched, where most of the research quote that it takes approximately 6 seconds for the resume to get the attention of the recruiter. And there are some research which say around 8 to 10 seconds. So I used a range of between 5 to 10 seconds. The reason is simply because the recruiters for any job get hundreds of resumes. So they don't have a lot of time. Even if they're using a software to sift through the resumes, they will still end up getting at least 20 to 25 resumes that they need to skim through. So they won't spend all the time reading through the resume. Rather, they will take first 5 to 10 seconds, skim through the key details, the key things that they're looking for. And if they can find those things and very conveniently are able to skim through the resume and locate those things that they're looking for, then you get shortlisted. If they skim the resume in those 5 to 10 seconds and find it difficult to move through the resume, don't find the things that they're looking for, then your resume doesn't get shortlisted and it's thrown out. So a resume that is hard to skim, fails to mention or highlight the key skills or traits that the recruiter is looking for, keeps you from getting the chance to move to the interview stage. Hence in this video, I will cover all the tips that are required for you to make your resume skimmable, easy to read, and catchy enough for it to get shortlisted within those 5 to 10 seconds. Now call out before we move further. 1, press the like button as this keeps me motivated. 2, press the subscribe button so you get notified as soon as I put in new content on this channel. On this channel, I post content pertaining to financial and career success for early and mid-career professionals. Other than that, in case you want to support me for making similar content in future, you can support me on patreon.com. I will leave the link to my page in the description of this video. Now let's get rolling. So tip number 1 is to make sure that your resume is not more than 1 page, period. Now I know there are many recruiters or many websites which propagate that you can have 1 or 2 page resume. However, I cannot stress this point more, that the resume should not be more than 1 page. And the reason is simple, because the recruiter doesn't have all day to read through 2 pages. They have those 10 seconds. And in those 10 seconds, if that 1 page cannot catch the attention of the recruiter, the 2 pages will never do it. Rather, it will become a burden for the recruiter to go and sift through 2 pages. Also, when you put things on 2 pages, many of the good things or the special things or the right things that you want to get highlighted may get diluted. Some of them are on page 1, some of them are on page 2, and hence the recruiter may not even get the chance to go to page number 2 where you have other relevant things that you want the recruiter to take note of. They may look at the first page, skim through it in 10 seconds, and may not find all the relevant things on page number 1 because you've divided them on page 1 and 2 altogether, and may just decide that you don't have exactly the things that they're looking for and throw away your resume. So make sure you keep it 1 page, because 1 page is simply when they hold it in front of them, they can quickly skim through 1 page and can find the relevant things that they're looking for as against turning the pages. So only a concise, crisp, short and simple resume can be read in 5 to 10 seconds and not a 2-page resume. Now one quick tip on how to make a 1-page resume. Now you may have currently a 2-page resume. Look into each of the lines and see how you can say the same things in less words. So if there is a line which has like 10 words, think of a way in which you can put the same things in 5 words. If there is a sentence that is falling in 2 lines, that should be very easy. You should just reduce it into 1 line and create that space to converge your resume from 2 to 1 page. Tip number 2 is to get rid of a long personal statement where you talk about your soft and hard skills, your character, your personality. You just simply get rid of this. You can create a lot of space in your resume by getting rid of this. All you need is a one line explaining who you are and what makes you the right fit for the job. For instance, if this is a job pertaining to pricing and portfolio strategy, then you can simply write, I have 15 years of experience in finance doing portfolio and pricing. That's it. And then your resume should follow where those key skills or key projects related to pricing and portfolio and strategy are highlighted throughout the resume. Similarly, if the role is requiring for a digital search manager, then you can simply write, I have experience in digital e-commerce for X number of years, or let's say I have experience with search and display across major e-commerce platforms. Just one line and not more than that. You will create a lot of space. This line is not to stuff keywords. This line is only for someone who, when looks at your resume, has like 5 to 10 seconds. They read and they go like, oh, this is exactly the person I'm looking for. Let's check out their experience, where they have gained this particular experience that they call out in this line, which is so much relevant for the role that I'm hiring for. So much so that the words that are used in the title or the role that you're applying for, you can use the same words in this intro statement. Because it can very well be that the role that you're currently doing may not exactly be worded the same way the role that you want to apply for. So you want to in some way bring in that element or those words that you are applying for, or the role that you're applying for and the words it carries. You just want to bring them in the resume and want to make sure that the recruiter's eyes or recruiter's attention falls on those particular words that they are looking for. So it's best to just put them in the intro line. Again, make sure it's not more than one line so it's easy to read, it's catchy, and they can find those relevant words which they are looking for in that particular line, which is at the start of the resume. So now let's assume this intro line is not there. Then, my friend, you create some extra work for the recruiter, because he or she has to sift in those 5 to 10 seconds through your resume and try to look for those key words or key elements that they are hiring for. So if you can place those key elements on the top in one line, then you made the job easy for them. And if you make the job easy for them, they will eventually like you or be happy or be more than willing to pass on your resume onto the pile which has been shortlisted. Number 3 is follow a standard format. Again, there are many recruiters out there or many web pages who advise on making a catchy format and put your picture and put some colors. Don't do that. And the reason is simple, because the recruiter is going through, let's say, 25 or 30 resumes, and most of the resumes will probably be in the standard format, because this is what most of human beings do. They create the standard black and white format, starting with their name, their address, their contact details, the personal statement in one line, and then their job experience starting from the recent one to the oldest one, then their educational experience, and lastly some interest or some certifications. So most of the people will be following this format. Now, if your resume comes in and has a different format, it will be very difficult for the recruiter to read through that format, because he or she has become accustomed to reading through a particular format. And they're going through resumes, they come in the same format, so it's easy for them to look for the information that they're looking for. And suddenly it is your resume which comes in, which is completely in a different format. So it makes it difficult for them to skim through the resume. And as I said, you need to make your resume skimmable. So if your resume is not skimmable at all, or not skimmable anymore because now it's in a difficult or different format, it will be challenging for the recruiter to skim through it and read through the resume. And if it takes more than 10 seconds, guess what happens? Your resume gets out or thrown in the pile where it's not shortlisted anymore. So some of the key tips that I've noted down here is use single or 1.15 line spacing, be consistent with the dates, always following a standardized format. Like if you're using the month, so every job or role that you have had should mention the months. I usually avoid putting the months, I just put the year. Divide the resume into designed categories such as details of your, as I said, experience, then education, and then interest and achievements. Stick to your margins and use same format scaling throughout. Don't have different format or scaling throughout your resume. Make sure it's the same format across. And again, do not use picture on your resume. This is very non-standard of a resume, so make it as standard as possible. Now, once the recruiter is done reading the title, which has your name, address, location, the first line, Then they move on to read through your experiences, just the heading or the top lines. Here, make sure that the heading or the name of the role is kind of highlighted or it's in a bigger format. So it makes it very easy for them to scan through the top to bottom of the resume and just looking at your experience plus the timing. So these are the two things that they will look at after looking at the top of the resume. So the flow is they look at the top of the resume, then they look on the side, go through your experience along with going through the time you've spent in each of the roles. So make sure the roles that you call out are highlighted, are bold or bigger in text, so it is very easy for them to skim through them, as against being written in very small fonts or mixed up with the description of the role, which doesn't allow the recruiter to identify which role is that description for. So make it easy, make it like in big format, so they can just go through those big items like 3, 4, 5 roles that you have, quickly read the title and get an idea of what your experience is. So the top line, your one-line statement, key experiences, and how much time did you spend on each of the experience. Make sure they come out as highlighted or bold or pop out in your resume. Next, make sure that you choose or write the title of the roles in your experience wisely. They should reflect a relevant feature from the role that you are applying for. Now understand that your role in your organization where you're currently working may have a completely different name. Let's say my current role is Director for E-commerce Finance, or rather it just says Director Finance. If I put Director Finance on my resume, it just doesn't say anything. However, let's say I'm applying for a company which is looking for e-commerce experience and finance experience and leadership experience. So on my resume, I don't write Director Finance. I write Head of Finance for e-commerce. And suddenly they're looking for a head, someone who has leadership capabilities or has been performing in a leadership role, is in finance, and has e-commerce experience. No one will go and exactly ask for the letter from your manager giving the exact designation, because all these designations in a particular company depend on the company's profile, how they've created those profiles within their company, how the HR has demarcated each of the roles. It has no bearing on how you present yourself on your resume. Again, what I don't mean to say is that if you're a director of finance, you start writing yourself as a salesperson or a marketing individual. That won't just fly. That is complete blatant lie. However, like myself, I'm director of finance as per my designation, but I am director of finance for e-commerce and I have people reporting as well. So given I have all these things, it is very easy for me to just say head of finance for e-commerce, because for the reader, it makes it very easy to understand who I am, as against me just putting director of finance and allowing them to imagine whether I have people reporting or I am into e-commerce or not, and so on and so forth. So just make it very easy for them to understand what role you're doing and how it is relevant for the role that they are looking for. So kind of match it with what role or what skills or capabilities they are looking for. So retitle your roles. Now, if you are able to pick up the interest of the recruiter in the first 5 to 10 seconds, they will slightly add more time on your resume and would like to read more, or may like to read more, because let's say if they are still not convinced, but the resume was catchy enough, they may want to read more. Here, make sure one is that you make use of bullets, which is you write all your projects and key responsibilities in a particular role in bullet format, because now you also need to make sure not just the big items are readable, but also the items or the details within each of the roles is also easy to read, easy to skim, because they won't be reading through the entire resume. They will read through few of the bullets or few of the items just to make sense of the role or what they're looking for. And similarly here, make sure that you mention your key or most big highlights or things which are most important for you to make sure that the reader reads first. So start with them. So your bullet should start with the big items or the most relevant items that you want the recruiter to read. So make it in bullet format so it's easy to read, and start with the big idea or the big themes that you want to reflect or showcase. Now, lastly, the first two roles that you mention on your resume, which should ideally be the roles that you've recently done or the one that you're recently doing, are the most relevant and important ones, because the recruiter won't be interested in a role that you did like 10 years ago. They're interested in the roles that you did in past 5 years. So make sure that those roles are meaty. They have a lot of detail or relevant details in them. The other roles that follow after 5 years can be a few lines or one or two bullets at max, because again, you want to make sure you put them in one page. But the roles that you're recently doing or have recently done in past 5 years should have all the meat in them or all the relevant details, because these are the roles which the recruiter is interested in, and this is why they're hiring you. So for instance, I'm a finance director. The reason they're hiring me is because I'm currently doing a finance director role, not because I did a finance manager role 15 years ago. So what I do is on my resume, I make sure that my current role has all the relevant details that I want them to know mentioned. While the roles that I did like 15 years ago, I just have them in one bullet or in one line. Similarly here, also make sure that under each role, especially for the roles which you've done in past 5 years, you write a one-liner description of what that role is. So maybe you did revise the title of the role, but still the recruiter is not able to understand whether this title really matches what they are looking for. It would be nice to put one line under the title, just expanding on what the role or the title is or what you're doing in that role. So I am managing a business size of X million dollars and I am doing financial planning for e-commerce. So just in one line. And then in bullets, you can mention the key projects. Thank you for watching this video. In case you like this video, I'm sure you'll also find value from another video that I have on my channel where I talk about how you go about writing a winning resume, where I just don't talk or capture the things that you need on your resume to make your resume catchy and skimmable, rather also how do you capture your achievements and projects within the resume. So I highly recommend you check out that video here. Other than that, I've made another video where I talk about how you can land a job by leveraging LinkedIn networking. You can check out the details for that in this video. Thank you.